Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I am attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch here with you guys. No, today is Tuesday. What is happening? What day are we? As you can see, I'm in a hotel room. I have been traveling for 9 days now, and it gets disorienting when you're traveling. You're like, where am I? What day is it? I'm currently still in Orlando. I did the parks with my kids, did some content at the parks, which has gotten some interesting feedback from you guys. So I went to 3 Disney parks, and it's July, obviously, it's summertime. And I was talking to one of the park employees, and he was saying, we're really, really down. Because I was like, I've always heard that nobody goes to Disney in the summer because it's so crowded. I mean, if you can avoid it, right? Like locals don't go in the summer, they go in the winter when the kids are back in school, because there's just so many people at Disney. And it was definitely busy at the hotel we were staying in, which was the Polynesian. But then we get to the parks, and there's just like lots of space without people, just real easy to move around. And it seemed to me like it was a quiet day. And so I was talking to one of the park employees about what was going on, and he said the visitation at the park is way down. And the primary reason for that, according to him, who's been working at Disney for over 20 years, is immigration policy. Because he's used to having and seeing lots of foreign visitors at the park. And he said the countries he called out specifically are lots of people from Brazil, from Mexico, from Argentina. They would have lots of visitors and tourists who would come in just to visit the parks. And the number that he gave me was that they were down 80% foreign travelers. The other thing that he said is that the people attending the parks has really shifted, because it's an extravagance. Visiting a Disney or a Universal theme park is an extravagance. It's expensive. It's very expensive. And because of all of the economic things that are happening, tariffs, inflation, housing prices, gas prices, that regular middle Americans just aren't spending on things like Disney. And so park attendance, that's the word I keep looking for, is way down. But interestingly, he said that Disney they have more affluent visitors, and affluent visitors tend to spend more money on like the fast passes and the Mickey ears and all that stuff, so that the Disney isn't actually suffering financially, which I know is not our concern, but that they have fewer people. And I just thought that was a really interesting take. The other thing he said, someone who's worked in Disney for so long, is that there have been 3 other times like this in his experience. One was post 9/11. One was during the 2008 housing crisis. And then the last one was COVID. And that these 3 events in the last 20 plus years have drastically dropped park attendance in his experience. And that this moment that we're in right now is the 4th event, up there with 9/11, housing crisis, COVID. Trump's policies domestically and on immigration are creating such a moment at Disney that it feels like those other catastrophic economic events in our country. And that's just worthy of pause. And I know that a lot of us, let me just move this back a little bit, know this. A lot of people hearing me say that are like, duh. But I do a lot of social media content, and I get a lot of naysayers, and they're like, it's fine, nothing's wrong, what are you talking about? And it's not fine. It is real. And there, we see it in lots of ways, but it's really in your face when you do something like go to Disney in the middle of the summer and there's nobody around. So that's what I'm doing. I'm still in Orlando. I'm just hanging out with some friends, and I head home soon. So you'll see me back in my usual set and my usual routine later this week in Spanish. And so thanks to my team behind the scenes who's been very flexible when I'm like, oh, let's do it at this time. And then last minute change it to another time. Travel Kate is a little less reliable. So anyway, and thanks to all of you who are still with me. So let's talk about some immigration updates. Feel free to start asking me your questions. As you know, we've had a recent uptick in immigration enforcement and in ICE deaths, ICE killings, I will call them. And of course, everything sort of quieted down after Minneapolis and Renee Good and Alex Preddy and the public outroar. And then Mark Wayne Mullen replaced Kristi Noem and everything got just a little bit quieter. But as I've been saying to you guys, in Texas, enforcement has not slowed down, especially traffic stop arrests have been picking up. And so these silent detentions have been rising, and I've been repeating that ad nauseum. And of course, we saw the results of that in the recent slew of killings by ICE. Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, who was killed in Houston. He's the Mexican father of the 3 boys, who did a press conference after his murder, which brought a lot of attention to his case, which was good. And then the killing of Joan, I'm forgetting his last name right now, the young man in Biddeford, Maine, who was also killed, have brought more attention, of course, to what's happening with ICE. ICE agents are hired quickly, trained quickly, given limited instruction and lots of power and lots of weapon power, and they go out on the streets. And we know from a lot of these ICE agents and these killings and the stories that have come out about who these men are, that they often tend to be very messed up, trigger happy men who have frankly been failures otherwise in life. They've been losers. They can't hold a job. They play violent video games. They're abusive to their ex-partners, including this man in Biddeford, Maine, whose ex-wife went very public with her opinions, her thoughts on him and who he is. And she said that he had called her and asked her to lie about his character because he was in this mess where he had killed somebody. And she said, I'm not going to do it. You were abusive to me all these years, and I'm not going to lie for you anymore. And so this is what's happening. And immediately, like after the second killing in Biddeford, there was another man who died in St. Augustine, Florida. He was actually just a tourist, just a visitor who was caught up in this, ICE enforcement action, and he was hit by a tractor trailer running away. And so there was like a rumor floating that they were going to stop traffic stops by ICE. Because the thing is, when you're talking about a police officer or a sheriff whose regular duty it is to pull people over who are speeding, a big part of their training is how do you do that safely? How do you take someone inside a vehicle, behind the wheel of a vehicle, and check their license and registration, see if they are drunk, see if they have a weapon, get them out of their car if you need to get them out of their car. Like, that's a tricky job, right? And so it requires a lot of training and caution. And so, for example, when Renee Good was killed and the officer was like walking in front of her car, a lot of law enforcement agents were like, why on earth would a police officer walk in front? You never do that. It's 101. But of course, we see these ICE agents who are untrained in traffic stops do stupid stuff like that. And so after Joanne got killed in Biddeford, ICE, there was like rumors afloat that we talked about last week, maybe ICE isn't going to do traffic stops anymore. But Trump freaked out on social media and was like, this is our most important tool for going after all these, dangerous immigrants. Of course, we know that the vast majority have no criminal history whatsoever. And so the agency quickly backtracked, and there's been nothing official. And ICE has continued traffic stops, including, in Texas. One of the things that I'm going to be Sharing later on social media today are some videos and photos that I have received locally in Austin, where I live, of agents hurting children. And I've talked to you guys about how the kids have been left behind in vehicles. And I get so many comments on social media like, you're a liar. We want to see the proof. And so I got these videos and photos, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to share them. In one of the instances, a family, a pregnant mother, a 6-year-old girl, and a father were pepper sprayed in Texas. And the little girl, I'll show you, watch my social media. There's like an image of her face. I'll blur out her eyes where you can see the rash from the pepper spray that these agents sprayed on her. In another video, there's this agent who's like been terrorizing people in the Lamar and Runberg area. He is walking behind this father who has his 4-year-old daughter in front of him. He's like protecting his daughter at this doorbell. It's a Ring camera footage. And he's like standing in front of his daughter, the father, ringing the doorbell, hoping that whoever's inside the house, I assume it's his family, can get this little girl to safety. And this officer comes and reaches up behind him and grabs him and pulls him away from this little girl. I mean, it's hard to watch, but these officers are terrorizing children. Not only are they killing people, they're terrorizing children. And I'm sick and tired of people telling me that's a lie on social media. It's not a lie. It's true. I have the footage and I will be sharing it later today. And on top of that, to get to the news of the week, the New York Times has reported the FBI is going to stop investigating ICE shootings. And now they're going to have Department of Homeland Security, HSI, Homeland Security investigations, investigate their own incidents. What do we call that? The wolf carting the hen house, which is definitely out of the Trump playbook. So that's our first news item, is that sounds like the FBI is no longer going to be investigating DHS. Not as if like the FBI investigating DHS killings was all that independent or objective anyway, because, you know, still run by the executive, but still it's a different agency at least. So that's one thing. We got to be keeping up and watching on this, and action item of the week is related to everything that I'm talking about. The next news item of the week is impacting international students. So international students come and they study, and they typically get admitted on what's called a duration of status visa. D/S is what they put on the visa. And that means basically until you're done. So you come in and you study for your bachelor's degree, and then if you want to stay and get your master's or even get your PhD, you can continue, and you don't have to go through the whole business of re-upping your student visa. But a new rule, a new regulation is in effect now. It was published in August of last year and finalized just last week. And it ends the usage of duration of status student visas. So that's going to affect F1 student visas, and J1 student visas will no longer get duration of status. What that means is you're going to have an expiration date on your visa. 4 years typically. Ideally, you finish your studies in that time. In most instances, that will not occur. Maybe you take an extra semester, or maybe you're going on to graduate studies, and it's going to introduce administrative complication for students. And it's just one more action against our international student community, which is really hurting higher education in the United States. The fact that international students don't want to come and study here because they are being treated as unwelcome, and the administrative burden of it is really hurting colleges and universities, because international students bring a large influx of cash into these institutions because they pay out-of-state tuition. You know, they're not on financial aid typically. It's like it's a moneymaker for higher ed. And it, of course, the Trump administration doesn't care. They're going after higher education. And so not only does it harm higher ed, it harms tech, innovation. You know, our global competitive edge is being slashed. We're cutting off our nose to spite our face for sure when we go after international student visas. I really can't think of any cause or reasonable argument for this regulation. Someone might say, well, I mean, a visa without an end is a problem. Yeah, it's not really without an end. I will say that students are one of the most heavily overseen and regulated visas out there because the schools have an international student department, and it's in their interest to have their students comply because they don't want to get in trouble and not be able to issue student visas anymore. So they're watching out for their students. They're providing administrative support about questions and related to all that. There's additional administration within federal agencies overlooking these students. I mean, I've seen students multiple times over the years who drop out of school or they enroll below the requirement, which is I think 12 hours. And someone will get to go to their door immediately, and not even in a high enforcement time like we're in right now. Like, during the Obama administration or other eras, I would see students who fell out of status get gone after immediately because the schools are involved and all of that. So this is not an area of fraud, abuse, problems by and large. And so we're fixing something that is not broken, and it's hurting our higher educational institutions at a time when they really need more money, and it's hurting our economy because we're not getting these brilliant minds from around the globe coming here, studying, and then going on to work and innovate here in the United States. It's a big problem. Okay, another news item was regarding another shooting. This is by an ICE contractor. Let me see if I can pull up the name of this person. Hold on, bear with me. Yeah. So this is in Aurora, Colorado, and there was a protest going on at an ICE facility. Brandon Booth is the name of the guy who shot someone. So there was a protest in Aurora, Colorado. Brandon was a contractor of ICE working at this facility. We'll lump him and his type in with these ICE people who shoot people, like generally failure to thrive professionally, and then they get these jobs and somebody hands them a gun and it's like, oh, you have power now. Anyway, he couldn't get into the facility because the protests were blocking it, and the victim in this case was a woman protester who was like shouting things at him, and then she turned and walked away, right? She was not physically engaging. He shot her as she was walking away in the leg, and she's expected to survive. And he has been arrested and charged. I'm happy to report, but I think we need to be watching the outcome of his case, because it's very similar, with clear distinctions that I will talk about, to the Prairie Land 9. Okay, the Prairie Land 9 were the groups of protesters where one of the party shot at one of the officers, right, who was there. Also did not result in a death. And in the Prairie Land 9 case, in order to send a message, the judge sentenced that group, even those who didn't go, to decades of jail time, between 30 and 70 years in this group, like huge sentences. So let's go ahead and see what happens to Mr. Booth when he did the same thing. He shot someone at a protest who was not harming him. Let's see what happens. Well, we're going to be watching that. Next news item. There's a U.S. Representative Pramila Jayapal in Washington who is introducing new legislation to protect children. And the goal of this legislation is to say that when a parent is detained and their children are not detained, that parent should retain some power and control over what happens with their child. And this is after the really tragic story of Orlin, I think is the little boy's name, the little 3-year-old boy. It's probably the worst story of all of the stories. This mom was detained and deported, and her son was placed into the home of an abuser who abused this little boy so badly that he died. And I just can't even imagine. I just cannot even imagine being that mother. And anyway, I doubt this legislation will go anywhere, but it is a no-brainer, of course, that when a parent is detained on immigration charges, they should retain power over, if they get deported, that whether their child goes with them, assuming there's no custody dispute, and if they're not detained, who has custody of this child. And this is, I'll make a plug. Since the election, I've been talking to you guys about the safety packet. Any undocumented parent needs to complete the safety packet, which directs what happens with your children. We now have your assets included in that, a power of attorney, durable power of attorney, that you can decide what happens with your bank accounts, your house, your business, your car, your pets. But most importantly, of course, is the children. And you need to complete that document and notarize it before you're detained. You can't do it when you're detained. And then what are you going to do if you don't like who is chosen to watch your child? Choose before it happens. You can get our resources at my website, which is abogadakate.com. It's free. You don't have to be my client. You never have to talk to me. Just go and download that packet. It's specific to Texas, the documents in there. But if you're in another state and you need some guidance, DM me on the social media like, hey, I'm in Colorado. What document is it here? And I'll at least get you referred to some nonprofits that are doing the same work. There's a lot of these safety planning packets that are being put out by various NGOs that are all very good. Like the ACLU has one, Texas ILC has one. And I don't care, of course, which one you use. Just do one of them and make sure you have primarily directed what will happen to your children if you get detained. This is for anybody who does not have a green card or citizenship. So if you're in process, if you have a case pending, if you have a work permit, if you have a U visa, whatever it is, you still could get picked up in this crazy world we're living in. And so therefore you should do the safety planning. Final news item, and then I'll start to get to your questions, is about a tuberculosis outbreak in another Colorado ICE jail. Well, Colorado is really feeling it right now. There is a TB outbreak in a facility. 12 people have tested positive. They are now quarantining the facility. Oh, and wouldn't you know, the AC also went out and they are under a heat advisory. It's close to 100 degrees. Apparently, they're passing out hand fans to people who are in there. It sounds actually like horrible. And this is what happens in detention. When you place people in detention, we've seen this over and over. Kids get sick, people get sick. We don't need to be detaining people who don't have a criminal history, bottom line. And we also don't need to be enriching private prison companies and their shareholders off of the detention of people. We just don't. But the lobbyists for these entities pay a lot of money to make more money. And the oligarchs in our nation receive that money. Follow the money. And there's a lot of money in the detention of people. So let's get to your questions. This is a Spanish question. I'll say it in Spanish and then I'll repeat it in English. Si vas a corte, cancelación, deportación, ayuda a no ser deportado, tener recibos de visa T. Sí, es de ayuda a tener un caso de una visa T pendiente. Dependiendo en el juez, a veces ellos requieren otra como defensa contra deportación. No van a esperar la decisión de la visa T, pero pueden aporrar la agencia del servicio de inmigración para hacer una decisión en su caso de visa T. Entonces, sí, es de ayuda, en mi opinión. The English response to this is, if you're in removal proceedings, is it helpful to have a T visa case pending? The answer to that question is yes, for sure. Now, the T visa decision is in the jurisdiction of USCIS, not the immigration court. And so some immigration judges will say, it's out of my hands, I'm not going to wait. But you can ask USCIS to speed up their decision on your case, or, seek some other form of relief before the judge. Like if you have an asylum case or a cancellation case, and all of that can give more time to the T visa. Yes, great question. Is it legal to record ICE agents? Yes, it is. Now, it's also confrontational. And so you have to take that into consideration. These are untrained, heavily armed, insecure men for the most part. who often react to being recorded. And so you have to make a personal determination about whether you're comfortable with that level of confrontation, which is pulling out your phone. Now, no matter what you do, don't get in the way. Don't yell at the agents. Do not interfere with what they're doing. Can you stand back and create a record of it? Yes. And I am of the opinion that we should, because look what happened with Renee Good and Alex Preddy. The video footage is what brought the truth to light. Whereas if you look at Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, there's some very fuzzy footage, but it's definitely not, you don't have 7 angles from 7 different close-up cameras. And so the truth is more in dispute in situations like that. So I think we should, if we're comfortable with that, and just know that that could get heat on you from that agent. Get back, follow their instructions. Do not, escalate, and do not interfere. Yes, you can record. And then I'll also say automatic recording devices are just a good idea. Get a camera on your door. Like I told you, I'm going to share with you guys a video of a really horrific event that was captured on a Ring camera later today on my social media. Get your dash cam. It does automatic recording, and you don't have to be confrontational. But if you are a witness to an enforcement action, get a record of it. Particularly, I've told you guys, I've talked to 3 separate families where the child was left behind after the parents were taken. I've talked to these families, and I talked to 2 of the kiddos. Is that true? I talked to the mom in one case and the child in another case, who were after having been left on the side of the road. But I don't have video footage of that. And so when I talk about it, most people tell me I'm a liar, most of the naysayers. So it'd be great to have some video footage of that so we can start proving that this stuff is happening. So yes, it's legal. It's worth attending a legal observer training if you can. Yes, thank you. National Lawyers Guild and local chapters host. National Lawyers Guild is a really great organization that has protected our civil and human rights over the decades. It's a really important organization, and so very trustworthy. You can Google National Lawyers Guild and look for an observer training. That's a good idea. Why is ICE conducting more traffic stops? Great question. It's quieter. It's more invisible. There's less footage of it. They can disappear people essentially and increase their arrests without storming the streets. And so when they pull people over a lot through these cooperative agreements through 287G, what they're pulling people over for is fake stuff, in my opinion. Window tinting, seatbelt infractions, license plate issues, why they're they're pulling people over, and then they disappear them and leave their car and sometimes their children by the side of the road. It's easier for them. It's low-hanging fruit, and they are 100% racial profiling. That is what's happening. They see someone who's Latino. Sometimes they run the plates. Sometimes they can tell through the vehicle registration that the person might be undocumented. Often, in my anecdotal experience, they are just pulling brown people over. Can DACA recipients be detained? Yes. They are not being detained by and large. ICE is not affirmatively pursuing DACA recipients. It's not like they're going to come to your house or your place of work. Could you be pulled over and taken if you don't have your work permit on you, or if they don't like your work permit? Yes. There have definitely been Dreamers who have been detained at checkpoints, which are 25 miles in from the border. Airports, domestic travel, guys, is no longer safe unless you have a green card or citizenship. Pending asylum, even with a work permit, I would discourage domestic flying. Oh my God, I'm forgetting the acronym of the agency. TSA, so many acronyms, is cooperating with ICE. And so people are getting taken in airport security lines. And I would, if I were a Dreamer, am I ready to say this? Yeah. If I were a dreamer, I would avoid domestic travel in airlines. Yeah. Kurt, I thought ICE had no jurisdiction 100 miles away from borders and could not do traffic stops. No, that's not true. ICE has jurisdiction all throughout the country. The 100-mile rule is related to something called expedited removal, which honestly is just a regulation that enforces a statute, so it could be changed. But it says that ICE doesn't, or DHS, I should say, doesn't have the authority to summarily deport someone within the interior of the country, more than 100 miles in. But they can and are all over the interior of the country making enforcement actions. I forgot to renew my permanent resident card and it expired in 2023. Can I still renew it or have the rules changed? I've lived in Texas for 51 years. I would recommend you go for citizenship if you can, so you don't have this worry anymore. Your card expires, right, when you have a green card, but your status doesn't. So you're still fine. You still are a lawful permanent resident, and you could still submit an I-90 and just renew your green card. But seeing that you've been here for 51 years, I would go ahead and get citizenship to lock in your status. More safe, can't get deported. You can move out of the country and not lose your status, retire elsewhere, petition more people in your family, vote. There's just a lot of benefits to citizenship that bring value, and you can apply for citizenship with an expired green card. Vicky, this is Spanish. I'll reread it in English. Entré con una visa hace 23 años. ¿Qué probabilidades tengo de ajustar mi estatus? Vicky, tienes que tener un familiar, un esposo o un hijo más de 21 años que puede pedirla para arreglar su estatus. So, dependiendo en tu familia, podría ser posible. Podemos consultar. This is a person who entered with a visa 23 years ago. She wants to know if she can adjust her status. My response is, if you have a spouse or a child over the age of 21 who's a U.S. citizen to petition for you, you could adjust status. You should consult with a lawyer, and we'll explore all those options for you. Ashley, my son is in the Army, but he's not 21 yet. Can we apply for deferred action? I overstayed my visa. You don't... That's a good question. Military parole in place is more about getting you eligibility for adjustment of status than deferred action. Since you overstayed your visa, so you already have a legal entry, I would probably not mess with parole in place for you and just wait until your son is 21 to petition for you. How old is he? Is he close to 21? Let me know. Mystic, my boyfriend is in federal prison trying to find out if he's a citizen. He was 17 when his mom became a citizen. Okay, it depends on the year that it occurred. If it was after the year 2000, the Child Citizenship Act would apply. And so if he was living with her and he had a green card and she became a citizen after the year 2000, then he automatically would have gotten citizenship under the Child Citizenship Act. But all those things have to be present. He has to have been living with her at the time, or at least, split custody between maybe his dad and her if they were divorced. He has to have had a green card, and it has to have occurred after 2000. Those are the elements. But feel free to DM me and we can do a consultation on that. Nayeli, good morning. Have you posted about the alien terrorist removal court? Not yet. I'll do a video on that. I'm not raising the alarm bells about that one yet. I'm going to wait and see how that one plays out. House of Prayers, is it possible for someone who is in removal longer than 90 days to still file appeal to reopen? Yes. So when you file a motion to reopen a removal order in absentia, meaning you didn't go to court, it's better to file it as quickly as you can. And if you didn't receive notice of your hearing, you can file it at any time. But it goes better the faster you file it. So depending upon the circumstances in your case, you could probably still file it. We do these motions all the time, so feel free to DM me and we will look into whether we can still file for you. Pollo en Fuego, what's the charge of the consultation? We're still doing free consultations. We're still not charging for consultations. You can just DM me to set it up, or you can go to my website. Lincoln-Goldfinch.com is my website, or Abogada Kate is my resources website. We're doing free consultation. We started free consultations when the election happened, and I just haven't wanted to end it yet because people really need it. It's confidential, no contract required. Just DM me and we can schedule you for a consultation in person or virtual. We're still doing that. Joy Z, I have a student visa. My program ends September 20th, but the new regulation applies starting September 20th. My I-140 was submitted in October 2024, and the residence was introduced May of 2026. Oh, great. So you filed for your green card 2 months ago. Then the student visa regulations should not apply to you. If you have an I-485 on file, then you can just let your visa expire. Of course, talk to your lawyer. Don't just take my advice. But if once you file for the green card, the expiration of the student visa should not matter. Nancy, price range for when a child helps adjust status. If it's just a straightforward adjustment, typically those cases are in the range of around $5,000. And then there's, criminal, like there's fees for complications, like if there's criminal matter, things like that. But generally that's about the range that you're looking at. Let me plug my computer in so I don't lose battery. Okay. Let's see what's next. This is a Spanish question. I'll read it in Spanish and then I'll do it again in English. Mi hijo cumple 21 años el próximo año, pero ya yo no entré al país legalmente. ¿Podría regularizar mi estatus? Eso depende en la situación de la familia. Hay varias excepciones de la regla de entrar con visa. Por ejemplo, la ley 245I, si alguien te pidió hace más de 25 años, o si tiene abuso en la relación con su hijo, o si alguien está sirviendo en las Fuerzas Armadas en la familia. Entonces hay varias excepciones, pero normalmente no. Si entrase sin visa, no hay una manera de arreglar por un hijo normalmente. This question is, okay, my son's about to be 21 next year, but I didn't enter with a visa. Is it possible for me to get legal status? And I said, there's some exceptions. Mostly the requirement is you have entered with a visa to get a status through your child. But like 245I is a law that says if you or someone in your family was petitioned many years ago, 25 years ago, you can still adjust status. Or there's a VAWA case, which says that if there's been abuse between the child and the parent, then you can move forward. Or military parole in place if anybody has served in the, I just got a message about the videos I sent over. I'll tell you guys about those in a minute. If anybody has served in the military, you can do an adjustment of status. So there are ways to do it, but generally it's tough if you enter without a visa to get status through your child. Okay, Ashley, he's 17. Oh, he's a baby. He's still a little boy. Since you entered with a visa, I would probably wait on the PIP. But if you have younger children, go ahead and do all the safety planning in case you get picked up so that you're ready and we could, get you out on bond. As a person who entered with a visa, if you were detained, you would be eligible for release on bond. So you might want to go ahead and just get ahead of all of that, prepare what you would do with the other kids, prepare your documents, all of that. So you're undocumented, but your son's in the Army. And if you had all that paperwork lined up, and you were to get picked up, we could act very quickly. We have a program in my firm called Nueva Esperanza or New Hope. It's for people who can't get status right now, like someone in the situation. And what we do is we get you the safety planning packet. We do a strategy session with the lawyer. We have, a line available to you for emergencies, and then we'll hold and collect your important documents and sort of prep you. And I think we're charging $750 for a year of being in that program. So that's also something that you could contemplate if you want to just form a relationship with an attorney who could respond quickly if something were to happen. Did I answer Dillman's collectibles? How much does your firm charge for family petitions? I don't actually know all the prices. We have a price sheet. That's one of our lower cost services, but it depends on whether we're doing a standalone I-130 or whether we're doing an adjustment. And, you know, there are factors. So the easiest way to find a price is just do a consultation. We don't charge for a consultation. So the only investment to find out is your time. And we try to provide value beyond, you know, what we would do for you and how much it would cost. We try to provide a lot of value in the consultation about what's your risk level, what can you do to prepare, what are our resources. Like, we provide all that. So I would say there is value in pursuing a consultation, even if sometimes people are like, I just want to know how much it is and that's all I need to know. And I get that, like, we're busy. And if you haven't done safety planning, I would say it's worth a consultation. That's my number one piece of advice for undocumented people is that each individual has a consultation with a lawyer. It doesn't have to be me, of course. It could be anybody that you trust, but just make sure you do that. And you don't just take like my advice in a live video or your friend's advice, or, you know, this is a complex system in a really important area of your life. And so it's just worth giving yourself that gift, honestly, of investment of your time. Okay, this is another Spanish that I'll repeat in English. Necesito ayuda para un familiar que agarró inmigración ayer. Lo siento, le dieron corte para en octubre, pero ocupa abogado. Okay, so nosotros tomamos casos de personas detenidas. No sé si ya tienen un abogado para la detención, pero se necesita abrir un caso de fianza o Habeas para sacarlo de detención. Mándame un mensaje directo si quieres ayuda. This is a person whose family member was detained yesterday and they have court in October. What I'm saying is they need a lawyer to get them out of detention, and that would either be a bond case or a Habeas case. This is a follow-up. I'm waiting for the approval, but it's taking too long. Oh, this is your adjustment. You have the student visa with the pending adjustment. I'm afraid if they cancel my student visa because my program will end just 5 days after the deadline. Well, when you have a pending adjustment, you're moving from one to the other, right? You're no longer a student visa person. You're a pending adjustment person. So if the program ends, you have the pending adjustment. But again, I would say either do a consultation with me or go to your lawyer and make sure that I'm right, because I have a lot of questions about like your program, student visa, your adjustment. Is it outside of processing time? When you say taking too long, is that because it's something stuck or there's an issue, or are we concerned about the outcome of that case such that it would make sense to renew the student visa or go into a new program? There's a lot to consider there, but I will just say in general, once you file an adjustment, you move from student over to pending adjustment. Labor abuse would count. Nancy, is this about the child petitioner? Will you let me know what you mean by labor abuse? If my boyfriend was detained in 2017 and he came back, and now it's July 7th, 2026, ICE detained him, can we fight his case any possible way? Probably not if he already has a removal. It depends on what the specific outcome was in 2017. Did he take a voluntary departure, or was he actually deported? I need to know more information. It's tough though when somebody has an actual deportation and you come back, then it's kind of done. You know, you can't really fight it. But if it wasn't a deportation, then yeah. Can I continue working if my DACA expires? No, obviously not legally. You don't have work authorization. Some people create a business and their business gets hired to provide service rather than them as an individual. But if you have any desire to get a green card through employment, like let's say you got your DACA before you were 18 and a half, you never accrued more than 6 months of unlawful presence, and now you have an employer who wants to petition for you to get your green card, they can do that. That's a way to get a green card as a dreamer. but you can't have worked without authorization. So you want to be really careful if you decide to like open up a business and you don't have a work permit, but you're still going to work. That might prohibit future options for you. So you'd want to consult with a lawyer about whether that's a good idea. Feel free to DM me. Yes, Nancy wants to know if we offer payment plans for a child parent adjustment. We offer payment plans on all of our case types because, you know, it's hard. It's hard to come up with this money. And so all of our cases are, I would say the vast majority, 90% of our clients are on payment plans. Heather, any movement on habeas in the Fifth Circuit? No, the decision of the Fifth was the rehearing en banc, meaning like, can you review this with the full court? That type of appeal was filed. And so the decision, I've been on vacation and I'm blank. So SNAVA was the name of the decision. Like all of these names are escaping me right now. The SNAVA decision is on hold pending the rehearing en banc in the Fifth Circuit. But I will say, like, all of our habeas are still going and being approved. He took a VD, says Maylee. That's good. That's not a deportation. Did he take a VD from the court or was it from ICE? Well, I'll just tell you the answer. If it was from court, and then he came back, that is akin to a deportation. If it was from ICE, like a voluntary return, and then he came back, it doesn't really count. So, but VD even from the court could potentially open up some options. I think we should consult so we can ask more questions. They can detain you when you are returning from the trip. Is this true or is it fear mongering? I assume you're talking about permanent residents and the new Supreme Court decision that says that ICE can detain people or treat them as applicants for admission, even if they have a green card. That's going to be people who have criminal history. So green card holders who don't have criminal history, don't have extensive or long travel outside of the country, generally don't have worries about traveling in and out. If you have any arrests, even if your charges were dropped, or if you've been out of the country for a long period of time, you should consult with a lawyer before you leave and come back. So not fear mongering, but doesn't apply to everybody. Returning through customs after the cruise. Yeah, same. Coming in from a cruise, an international cruise, you should treat that as an immigration event for sure. Erica says, I have a pending I-360 and a 485 and my DACA renewal. No legal entry. If I get detained, can I get a bond? You would not qualify for bond currently, but you would, well, under SOSNAVA, maybe you would, but that's on hold. But you would qualify for habeas. And we're getting most people out on habeas. Heather, have you seen anyone from the 39 countries who were paused have their I-130 approved? Yes, we've gotten some approvals from Venezuelans in the last week or two, which is great. Venezuela needs a break. You're an awesome attorney. Thanks for taking time to do these lives. Thank you. Thanks for being here with me. It makes me feel happy, like we're together, doing this together, all this BS in the world. And on that note, let's do our action tip of the week. Like I said in the beginning of this, I'm about to share some videos on my socials of kids being harmed by agents in Texas. I have proof, and I'm going to be sharing it. And we need to do something about this. And DPS is not going to do anything about it if we complain to them. So we need to be contacting our Texas legislators. Contact your senator or your state rep and tell them you're not okay with the way DPS is behaving in their traffic stops. They are hurting the children. They are racially profiling. And DPS is a state agency that should not be enforcing immigration, because we've got a legislative session starting up again in January. And a lot depends on the outcome of the midterms, but the Texas Leg is going to be thinking about state level enforcement of immigration. And so let's start the conversation with them now about how problematic this is for the children. And if you don't follow me, and you'll see what I'm talking about soon. Okay. Thanks everybody for being with me. I appreciate all the questions y nos vemos el jueves en español. Bye.